Okay, this video covers the creation and installation of track. First thing you're going to need is 19.5 centimeters of drywall fiber tape, or carpet tape, I guess. So just mark that spot, the 19.5. You can cut it off a little bit long, but I wouldn't cut it any shorter than that. 19 3/4, 20 is fine. Just don't want less than 19.5. So let's just confirm that's what we have. Yep. And secondly, find the sticky side, and you're going to cut this. You can just estimate. Cut it in approximately half. Long ways. And you want to flip sticky side to sticky side and just offset all of the lines. So both directions. Should create, I guess, 4 times as many squares. And the best way to do this evenly, and it's important that it goes down evenly, is that just keep your eye on one of these long lines, the thinner ones, and make sure it is placed evenly between the ones it's going between. For example, I'm keeping my eye on this line and making sure it lands directly between these lines all the way down. I'm not looking at anything else. And that will make sure that as we cut our lengths of track, they end up, we only have to measure at the top or the bottom. We don't have to measure all the way along. As long as the lines are even, we'll make even bits of track. So, and these are easy to peel apart again and just try again. So if you get the thing wrong, just pull it off and go again. Once you got that done, trim down one side. I like to, usually the one side of the drywall tape is a little bit messed up. You can see like some of these lines here, the thicker ones have been kicked off. So I'm going to use this as the good side and cut my track bits from this side. And usually you don't need the last little bit here, unless you've made your halves very not half-like, in which case you will have a little bit less surface to work with. Okay, so once you got that even, you can use the measuring again. And the track width for the Panther is 8 mils. So I'm just going to find and mark with my eye the line that's closest to 8 mil. And that would be here. So just between these two lines right here is 8 millimeters by the look. So I'm just going to keep my eye on that spot as I remove this and cut between those two lines. And because I've laid the lines of fiber tape straight, you should be able to, once this is cut out, find that it's 8 or very close to 8 all the way along. So we got that. Repeat again for the second part. I'm going to go on to the next part of the steps now, with just this half of what I need. So next thing you want to do is cut out some strips. You don't have to harden these first. In fact, you don't want to harden these first. Cut out some strips. Now, it doesn't really matter what the width of them is. Just try to keep them even. And I go for about 1.5 millimeters to 2 millimeters. Once you've got a few of the strips, enough to hold in one hand, like easily between 2 fingers, you're going to cut out, and I would cut them about 1 centimeter long like estimate a centimeter and then cut them out that big, because it's nice to have a little bit of extra overhang to work with while you're doing these steps. So cut them a little bit extra long. You want them to be wider than the track base or the fiber tape. And you're going to need lots of these. So I think it's like 35 approximately per tank, depending on their width. It varies. But for each vehicle, you probably need about 70. Again, it's quite variable. So I've already got most of my stuff done, so I don't need a huge pile of them. I'm going to use 2-to-1 glue for this, so quite thin. But it has been... I added a little bit of extra glue because it's really important how it kind of sits on the piece of fiber tape, and 2-to-1 isn't quite thick enough, often, depending on how it's mixed. So what we're looking for when we lay this on is for those gaps between the fibers here to be filled without causing drips or runs. And we're just gonna cover about 4 centimeters maybe, and then you're gonna start carefully laying these pads from one side onto the track. Now this can be a bit of a challenge, especially if you've had 2 coffees and are a little shaky. But just try to lay them evenly, and then don't touch them again because they slide around really easy. It's not easy to get them into these positions. So I'm not going to go too far. You can see what I'm doing. I'm leaving about the same width gap between them as they are wide, just to make it easier to figure out where to place the next one. So you won't be able to put all of these on at once. You're going to be able to get maybe a third of the way down, and then you're just going to have to set it aside because otherwise you'll dislodge these as they're trying to dry. The best way to let it dry is to put some counterweight on the other side and then just set it on a paint tube or something along these lines. And then just let it dry and then continue with that process. Now I've got some here that are almost complete. There's a bit more to do. And I'll cover that because you want to leave about this much. So about 1 centimeter, a little bit more than 1 centimeter, maybe 1 centimeter and a third at the end to attach the track to itself when you're done. So this extent of glue is probably about as far as I'd try to do in one shot. It's a little easier to do the last section because you do have somewhere to put your fingers while doing this. And we're just going to counterweight it on this side when we set it to dry. So I do know that when I first started doing this, it was really frustrating and difficult. So you may want to do this for a little bit and set it aside and come back to it later. It's pretty hard to get these nicely, perfectly in place the first time, but you will get a lot better at it as you go. Like I said, I'm usually more skilled than this. I've just gone and started filming a video after 2 coffees. So my stability isn't what it usually is here. You can see how I'm manipulating their position using the, and placing them using the extra length to my advantage. So you really need that approximation of a centimeter in length for these pads. You can kind of just quickly go ahead sometimes, if you can get away with it, and just place a bunch of them and then manipulate their position with this once you're done getting them on there. Sometimes be a bit quicker. And if they're a little bit out of position, you shouldn't be able to see it very well, considering most of this is basically hidden. Okay, so that's about the right amount of space you want to leave at the end. Just going to counterweight this. And set that aside to dry.